the Hall of Famer who's with us on Mike and Mike. Good morning, Coach. How are you today?
Good morning, guys. I'm fine. I'm thinking about my buddy a little bit, but I'm fine.
Well, it's a delight to have you, and we'd love you just to share your recollections of it. We know that while you competed against him for all of those years when you were at Georgetown and he was at Villanova, we know you also had a very deep friendship. What can you tell us about the man behind the coach?
Well, there are two feelings. I was a competitive enemy of the little Italian, and I was a personal friend. And we used to kid one another about that a lot. And, Rollie was the kind of guy that you knew anytime you'd go into a competition with him that you and he were going to bump heads, and he was the type of guy who you knew that his team was going to be well prepared. But off the court, he was kind of funny. I used to tease him all the time because his granddaughter went to Georgetown. And I used to tell him, hell, if Villanova was so damn great, why the hell did you send your granddaughter to Georgetown? He would come back at me. He would come back at me. But he was a great guy, really.
So looking at that season, you guys played twice in the regular season. You won them both, 52-50, 57-50. They lose in the semis of the Big East tournament. They go into the tournament at 19-10, and then all of a sudden you're matched up with them in the national championship game. Just take us through, as they were making their run to get to the title game, just your thought of that run he was making.
Sure, I was hoping he was going to lose, but it was tough because of the fact that you know that you hate in competition like that to continuously play somebody from the league itself. And I think that year we played like 3 teams or 2 teams, whatever it was at this point, in the Final Four. And then when you play Villanova, a team that we had tough ball games with during the regular season, and a team that knew how you did things, knew the tempo we were going to play at, and they weren't as intimidated by playing against us. So, you just didn't like the fact to play against teams that you had played. Certainly, when it's all said and done and all over, as I told you, we cared about it, but I told him I still hated him for upsetting us in '85.
John Thompson Jr. is with us. Yeah, that was the year 3 teams got in from the Big East to the Final Four. You played St. John's and beat them in the semis, and then you had Villanova in that championship game. So what you're saying is you knew that team, which has been described by some, we just ran a piece here, as perhaps a little underachieving, the Villanova team that year, you knew they were better than their record.
No, I definitely knew they were better than their record. And even if they were not better than their record, I knew that they were better playing against us than people gave them credit for, because anytime you play league competition, the intimidation factor is not there. And that was something that, you always are concerned about. And the psychology of a game sometimes is just as important as the actual competition aspect of it.
Can you put, because we don't have it, I mean, the Big East, what the Big East was, what all you guys were, that conference was just ridiculous. And now, obviously, that element missing from college basketball with those teams. Can you kind of talk about just that league and the toughness of that league day in and day out against those teams?
Well, I think it was very tough, to tell you the truth, because the strangest thing is that when we were all independent schools, we were good, and especially a nucleus of teams at that point. And then you came together, and not only were you competing against yourselves, you were competing about trying to get league credibility. We knew the ACC, the Big Ten, and all of those conferences, and that's how, Mike, it was sold to us. It was sold us by Dave Gavitt that, hey, at this point, this is the era of leagues. You can't do it independently. Hell, I thought I didn't need the Big East. Boeheim thought he didn't need it. Louis thought he didn't need it. And he had to convince us to form a league. And, when you did it, you were competing against each other as well as competing to get recognition as a conference.
And that's what it was. I mean, the Big East to me will always be that group of guys.
Absolutely.
Thompson at Georgetown and Boeheim and Louis Carnesecca and Massimino at Villanova. For a while, Rick Pitino was coaching in that conference and some of the others. The legend John Thompson Jr. is with us here. And one final thought for you here, Coach, and we so appreciate your recollections this morning. people harken back to that game, the 85 championship game, and they say Villanova played a perfect game. Your team was so ridiculously good. Everybody remembers Patrick, but the whole team was so good. Do you believe they played a perfect game? Did they play perfectly that day, and did they have to do that to beat you?
Well, Mike, they shot the ball extremely well. And as I said before, the 3 games that we had played all together, including the championship being one of the 3, the games were tight games. Everybody talked about it like it was a sensational upset, and it was. From the standpoint of the perception of how good we were and the attention we had gotten. But in the same token, I think that just in looking at how we had played, I didn't perceive it that way. I'm going to say something, Mike. The thing that bothers me most about the whole thing is that Rollie never got in the Hall of Fame. He and I talked about that a lot, and I felt bad for him. I tell him, hell, if your upset was so big, they should put you in the Hall of Fame, and he should have been in the Hall of Fame. You look at all of the guys who were in the league at that time, Louis, Jimmy over at Connecticut, all of us are in the Hall of Fame. And I really thought that it was an injustice to him. And that's the friend part of my feelings about him. The competitive part, I would tell the son we're going to something else. But I respect him and know that it's just a mystery to me why he's not in the Hall of Fame. That's really a mystery to me.
He is in the College Basketball Hall of Fame, which does exist. He is not in the Hall of Fame in Springfield. Coach, we so appreciate your time and your recollections this morning. Our condolences to you again and all those who knew Rollie well. And thank you very much for sharing some thoughts with us today.
Thank you. He was a good man. And I forgive him for 85. But not long. But not very long, brother. Okay.
Thank you,
Coach. That's great. I mean,